All right. Hello and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It's wherever it is in your current time zone. I'm Lloyd, and this is the Cardano Budget Committee's Ask Me Anything session. Today is the 18th of February, 2025. This is our early AM US East Coast time zone, but wherever you are in the world, I'm sure that we appreciate very much that you are here and glad to have you at our session. We go over our questions that anyone in the community might have regarding the budget process or the current budgets that are available via that are proposals via the Cardano forum, because we're in our socialization phase right now. So welcome to everyone. I see Ken Eric, I see Nana, I see we've got Felix. Welcome, Felix. We've got members from Intersect. We have Tex, Simo, Lara. Thank you guys all for joining, and Chris Kowalski from the Cardano Budget Committee. Thank you all for joining us and being a part of this session. It's great to have the members of the various committees here, because if there's a question on a specific item from that committee, it's great to have representatives of that committee here. Utah's just joined us. He's with the Membership and Community Committee as well. So it's great to have representatives from so many of our committees here with us, and happy to start taking any questions. We just ask that you raise your hand if you have a question. If you have follow-up questions, one follow-up is just fine. If we've got a queue of people, do your first follow-up, and then let's move to the back of the queue to give other people an opportunity to speak as well. But otherwise, let's get started. Hello, everyone.
Hey, since it was so silent, I keep the thing up. One of the things that I'm curious about is the budget document is dynamic. There are changes. Could you highlight perhaps some of the few changes the last week and explain what's going on? Thanks.
Sure, Canary. Thank you. I would say, again, right now it's primarily response to concerns. MCC is here, and what I've seen from them has been really great. They have a versioning system that they've used. So as they approve their changes, you're getting a different version of the document coming out. That's one of those nice to see things from the committee. There in TSC OSC there haven't been any substantial changes. Theirs were, I think, more mature already. I think they came to the table kind of ready to go. Marketing, growth and marketing committee, I think, is still in the process of changing there. So I would say I would give them some more time to continue to finalize their work, and theirs will mature over the next little bit here. And I'd say between civics and budget, I think both of us have been working at refining the ask. We haven't changed any numbers necessarily, but we've been refining because I saw it several times. What's a budget summit? Is that when it was like, well, it's not really one event. It's actually a series of events over the full year. So it was, it changed the context so people were understanding it a little bit better. So those are the kind of changes so far. What we intend to do, we're on version 0.2 of the budget process right now. What we intend to do is continue to take feedback during this week, and then try to next week to release an overall update with where we stand.
Oh, cool. So then it's not long before we can see net change limit and perhaps the first, let's say, core bucket coming out.
So net change limit should be going very soon. We are taking feedback on it still right now, but as that feedback finalizes, we'll be going on chain with that pretty imminently. So
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Tex, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, Lloyd. So I'd love to give Ken, give the community just, I guess, probably a little bit more of an update. I don't want anybody to sit here thinking that these committees or groups are sitting here with idle hands. We didn't just throw together a budget and then say, well, let's see what they say. No, there's actually a lot of work going on behind the scenes, even with TSC and OSC. There's some things that may shift from one budget to another just because it makes more sense. There has also been some criticism that, hey, why is OSC not putting forth for their stake? So, maybe some of that might balance out a little bit more to show that we are connected as we are on the back end. even for growth and marketing, there's been some additional support that they've received. So they should have a revised budget. So again, even though you're not maybe seeing an immediate change or day after day, MCC has been rather committed and things like that. There is work going on the back end. There is a plan to release some revised budgets for at least 3 of the committees, if not more. And so again, I just want to make sure everyone's aware there are considerations. You're not just sitting here without doing anything. So.
Yeah, absolutely not. Thank you, Tex, for the extra clarity there. I always appreciate that. It is a little early, so we want to make sure we get good clarity out to everybody. But yes, all of the committees actively working hard to make the changes that need to be made based on the feedback of the community. That's what this whole phase is. That's what this promise has always been, is that we would take this time to really listen to what the community felt was a better direction with the things we're doing, to try and encapsulate as much of the feedback as we can. Not every individual piece of feedback makes it directly into the document, but it's all captured, it's all actioned on, and we do work through all of that feedback to make the best possible document that we can. So, hey, Felix, how are you?
Yeah, happy day, everyone. One question, and you're in a good position to speak to it. What do you see currently as the most relevant challenges, blockers, risks for the budget getting approved, actually?
So the challenges, the risks to getting approval. It's all we're in a public procurement. So a lot of experience in this space is more corporate procurement, right? Up till now, most of the companies in the space have, if they've gotten funds from like a founding entity, and that's corporate procurement. Right. So bottom line, that is just sort of where we were. We're moving away from that. Obviously, we are now in a public procurement. It's a public good blockchain, and it has a treasury. The treasury has to be voted on in what is ultimately a political process. Right. So that's a big change. And so folks all throughout this process are all going to have to embrace the different type of procurement that this is. So it's going to take time and effort to get that to reality. And what you want every voice heard, you want every concern addressed, and then you want to continue to provide a good public good with the blockchain, right? Because everyone relies on that being successful and that being clean. And we've got a nice long history of it being successful, but now it's changed hands. Like literally officially went today, right? Or tomorrow's Wednesday. So like tomorrow after the epoch turnover, like it's official. We have the Constitution that was delegate approved is in place. Like the only really other steps we have now are voting on a roadmap, voting on a budget. We don't really and then we're fully engaged in our own thing, and it's a public thing. So we've shifted our focus. So that shift of focus, I think, handling that maturely and responsibly is going to be the biggest risk, because it's very easy to vote yourself some cake, right? It's very easy to say we want more sugar, give us more sugar. It's a lot harder to say let's eat our broccoli. Let's do the work we need to do to keep the chain functional, to keep to keep everything moving forward, and hopefully to develop together newer tech that makes us even stronger. So we're not just a status quo like a la Bitcoin without, where it got to, we're just kind of reached a stasis, but instead we're a growing thing that's getting better over time. But to get there, we have to cross this transition phase. And to me, that's the biggest risk, is that we cross this transition phase, not wide-eyed, not aware of what it really means to be in a public procurement process rather than in a corporate one. Is that helpful for you, Felix? Thank you, man. Appreciate you being here today. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hi, hello, how everybody? I was just trying to answer Felix, not just Lloyd. You're doing amazing, Lloyd. Don't get me wrong. The biggest, so from the budget committee perspective, our biggest, so we are confident in the budget, and at this point we are looking at items correspond to things that are important to the community and important to the ecosystem. And what we are setting today can be replicated for the following years, so that the foundation is really, really solid and scalable. So we're not doing this budget with the thought, oh, it's going to be a one-time thing. And with that, there are a lot of problems that are coming because we don't have time that we would like to have. That's why we are in February now. And there are problems that some of the items could be overlapping, not double dipping, but overlapping. So let's say left hand wants to go to Paris, but the right hand wants to go to Paris the same week, but end of the week. They should coordinate and only have one team at Paris for the whole week, not to have sent two teams. And this happened because there wasn't enough communication, and not because people aren't communicating, but there is a lack of time. And at this point, we're just sorting all of the items so that there isn't too much of unnecessary overlap. And it wouldn't be double dipping, but doing it the proper way, so we're not overpaying. About the process, what Lloyd said, you have two types of suppliers or builders. Let's say builders. You have the core ones that are usually small to larger companies, which are able to handle a lot of different types of procurement styles. And then you have smaller ones which are not experienced. And Intersect has done a really nice job of creating a process, which are still in draft phase, how to have it streamlined, easily readable, and easily understandable. And one thing just to add, and this is not for you, Phil, but for everybody, what we noticed that some of the budget items were not written in terms that are understandable to non-technical people. Just yesterday, we had one of the senior budget members who's very proficient in finance mentioning how he didn't understand technical terms which were mentioned from TSC. And we told various committees that several of the items need to be broken down and written in layman terms so that everybody can understand them and understand the impact. Why do you need a code review and why do you need bug fixing as different items? Why? Somebody doesn't understand that they're not the same thing. So those are the challenges that they're having, and I think that once we implement all of these best practices, next year we will have a much faster budget and much more sound.
Thank you, Chris, for the added context. Always appreciate that. And yeah, those are just all these illustrations of the challenges that Tex and Chris have just put out. Like, these are the kinds of things that we are dealing with in the process. That it's like, that's the behind the scenes work that isn't the shadowy cabal work. I love the you bring in X here, the shadowy cabal, everybody's making backroom deals. No, in reality, everybody's working in the background to bring more clarity, more transparency, more capability to the process so that we do have a strong process that we're documenting for next year. The working groups that we have within the budget committee, one of them is the process working group. It's basically, as we get a little further through this process and we get to kind of the finish line, whatever that looks like, of this first budget process, that working group has to kick off a group of meetings with all the different types of stakeholders. So that's going to mean getting with people that are receiving the procurements, getting with people who are DReps who voted, getting with the committees, and kind of going through each of the different moving parts of the different stakeholders that are involved in this budget process so that we can find out where the pain points were and improve things for next year. So that's, to Chris's point, that's exactly what we have to do, is capture that learning. And that's where the budget line item for process, which is actually our lowest line item that was in there, was to capture that learning and make sure that next year that we have a more refined process at the end of this year to provide next year's budget. So, so yeah, that's the work going on that front. And so thank you, Felix, for the searching question, because it got a lot of good context to what we're working on here. So I saw some new folks come in. We're in an AMA session, so if you have a question, concern, comment, we're happy to hear it. Just need to raise your hand, and we'd love to hear from anyone who's come in, join the room after the start here.
I just remember the question I think I asked you, Lloyd, before in the Intersect chat. It was about later on when the budget is accepted on each and every committee, and the future shows that we need to reallocate some of the funds from one item to the other item. How is this going to be done as a process? Can you explain more about that? Thank you.
Sure, Martin. Thank you. So if it stays within, this is where the concept of the bucket or the budget, the idea of the core, if it stays within core, what they've done is they've produced a list of things that they would like to work on and the priority in which they would work on them, right? So if more funds are available because one of the items didn't need as much money, then they simply move to that next item. So it's a list of promises that they can work from. So for the most part, that's what that looks like. It looks like you've got a list of different things you could work on. Now, then the other side of that question is what would it take to move funds sort of from one bucket to the other? This is actually where the idea of the budget summits come in. The budget summits were an idea of a quarterly meeting where we gather together with DReps and give the output. Here's what we've done up till now. Here's the money that's spent. Here's the money that's still in reserve. Those are the sort of normal, anyone that's ever sat on a board at a company, that's sort of the normal kind of, financial reporting that you get. Ours would just be super, super public because it's all blockchain, right? So it'll be just, super in public, and taking feedback from the DReps and like, hey, there's extra money here and there's a lack of money here. Are we good with that? And if we need an info action, we can do an info action. If it looks like we've got a degree of consensus where that's not necessary, the funds can move. It just depends, and that's really that's your benefit of having an administrator, is you can help make those decisions and help move things around. But again, the DReps are the ones that tell us whether or not we exist. So, so basically if they tell us no, then we don't touch it. We wait, and it is what it is. If they tell us yes, then we go ahead and move the funds where appropriate to another bucket if that's the efficiency we're looking to get. So it really is that simple. It's a matter of consultation and liquid democracy decision making that drives whether or not we move funds from any one bucket to the other bucket.
But so who is taking the final decision? Like, can we apparently we can do it with a poll in Intersect Discord server, but who is deciding, who is taking the final decision? If we have a poll among the committee members, do we need to go with that to the DReps? So are we obligated to create also an info action or not?
I would say we are going to have to leave that to the DReps. If the DReps would be angry and say that don't move those funds without an info action, well, then we won't move the funds without an info action. Like that is, this is our first time through. So we have to be just very much on the listening side, very much on the, what are the bounds that we should work within? And that's what we're trying to understand, right? That's literally what this socialization process is trying to understand the bounds of what are we spending money on as a community, right? Are we a sovereign wealth fund versus a move fast, break things, corporate, let's throw all the money, out right now and burn our treasury? Like what of those are we? I think that's, we have to reach a collective consensus, just like we had to with the Constitution, right? And it was painful in its own way to get to the Constitution, but here we are. We got it. Wednesday, we got it. We're done with constitutions here, and then we get to start the next round of the Constitution. But that's a refinement process now, right? So now we're doing that same thing with roadmap. We're doing that same thing with budget. Okay, so we're feeling our way through it, just like we did with the Constitution, and we will, through this first process, we'll kind of learn where our guardrails are, where we can go, and once we have that really well in hand, then we'll put it in the process, but we can refine it year over year, right? We may find that this year they're being especially cautious, but next year they find out that, hey, those budget summits really worked because they've had a chance to experience them, and okay, those work, so that's a good enough consensus to move forward. But we don't know that yet, so we're open to whatever the possibility is. And I think that's really the only way we can get through this first process. It was how we got through the Constitution, tried to be open to everybody in the room to get that feedback that we all needed to have to where we got to a Constitution we could agree on, even if it wasn't perfect. That's what we're doing now with the budget. That's what we're doing now with the roadmap. We got to get to that. We agree upon it, but it's not perfect yet.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lloyd.
Pleasure. Thank you, Martin. Okay.
I couldn't find hands up. Hello, can everyone hear me? Sorry, Lloyd.
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Sorry, you were busy chatting and I've got issues with my camera, so apologies. Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to come back to that question Martin asked about moving the money. So with any budget process, yeah, let's say within the buckets themselves within core, we know there's OSC and TSC. So should we need to move funds from the TSC committee as a budget to the OSC? That's because it's within the budget, it would be an approval required from both of the committees. So we would seek approval from the TSC to move some funds from them, if that was the case, to the OSC. So both committees would accept it. So because it's within the buckets, it's easier to do, and it's just via committee approvals. Now, I would like to just add though, if the work that's being carried out is a new piece of work and maybe it's contentious or requiring additional approval, we would use an info action to seek a guidance from the DReps to proceed with that prior to actually proceeding, obviously. So we would use the info actions where applicable, and there is also that new proposal forum now on the Gov tool, where we could even use that as a kind of, I think it gives you the thumbs up and thumbs down options. So we could use that to gain sentiment from the DReps that we're okay to proceed. So there are absolutely options for us to do that. If we're moving money from each bucket, so again, use it purely as an example, we're going to go from the core bucket to the research bucket. Because it's going to, yes, we still need the approval of the committees themselves. So we would need a decision, a noted decision, and a resolution from each of the committees. And we probably would seek some sort of approval from the DReps to make sure that they're okay with that movement of funds, because ultimately they've approved the buckets. Now, we've got to be mindful of speed and efficiencies. So obviously we need to continually supply the services to the community. Through our quarterly reporting, all of this will be coming up anyway. So we'll be talking to the DReps through our quarterly reports, showing them if any funds have moved and why, and we can then discuss it during those sessions.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Lawrence. Great for that extra context there. I do want to point out that the folks that didn't see it, Utah did place some polls from the MCC. The MCC is actively seeking some guidance from the community. If in the Cardano forum and also in Discord in their MCC channel in Discord, there are links to their polls. So I would appreciate it, and I'm sure they would as well, if you could take a couple minutes and answer their polls so that you can give them the extra guidance on their line items, because they are seeking to clarify their line items and get them stronger with more community support. So please do that if you have a chance. And yeah, Martin, go ahead.
I just want to point out that maybe it's not a very good idea to have the same poll at the two separate places, because people can vote differently. That's becoming a bit of a mess. So it needs to be one place, and yeah, the link to that place. But just
I will pass that feedback on to YouTube, but you're right.
Just
and
an
I do
opinion. Yeah,
absolutely. And I do agree. Yes, it would probably be best to put the poll in one place and then spend a lot of time promoting the one poll. But I'll give that feedback back to MCC, because that is good feedback. Thanks, Martin. Yeah, Felix, go ahead, man.
One question, like, I think in the early days when the first annual budget was thought about, there was very much the thought of, oh, okay, let's look on what does the Cardano Treasury generates per year, and let's create already this mentality. Ideally, we do not exceed spendings from what we actually get. Now we've got a really interesting proposal in as well, by the governance section. I posted a link here in the live chat as well for those who don't know, which actually suggests or proposes, it's a parameter change. It's not an info action. Important to keep in mind here. Which actually proposes to lower the treasury cut from the current 20 to 10%. In this regard, if this proposal would pass, you would have to reassess the whole annual budget fine.
Ultimately, we would have to, it depends on if the DReps change the net change limit or not. The net change limit now is conceptually that we know roughly what will go in the treasury in 2025. We know what went in 2024. So we're able to make a good estimate of that's around our replacement rate, which, like you said, it keeps us from reducing. Now, if it changes, at a minimum, we would need to run the calculations to see what that number would look like. And then if the DRep said, yeah, we need to stay within that new boundary, well, that's what we'd have to do. We'd have to, but that's what I was saying earlier about how we've got priorities in the budget where our highest priority items are listed down to our lower priority. Well, what that would mean is if we had to tighten the budget, the lower priority items would get less attention, if any attention at all, and the higher priority items would get done. That's ultimately how budgets always work, right? You go to the grocery store, you don't get the steak first, you get the bread, the milk, and the eggs, and then if you've got money left over, you can buy the steak. But if you don't, you don't. And so that's we're going from highest priority, most necessary item down to the things that are really nice to have and would be helpful to and beneficial to the community. So you change what we're able to spend, and if the DReps want to change that, then yeah, we have to change it and we have to spend less and live within our means, whatever those means are.
I think it's worth that. I mean, I've been reading that and just having a look at that. So because it's actually conceptually it is constitutional in my personal opinion. But if you then look at so let's hypothesize, if it does go down to 10, so it's cheaper to do business on Cardano, we could actually see the reverse assumption being that it actually increases utilization because it is cheaper to use it. So actually more people use it. So then consequently, the load into the treasury could actually potentially remain the same, but your utilization goes up. So there are cases where actually decreasing it may bring additional utilization, thus maintain the steady flow of funds into the treasury. Versus obviously the higher end, which would make it more expensive. One would then assume less people would be using Cardano, but they could do it. So there is an argument that there is it would remain the same. But yes, it's going to be an interesting one. As with any tax in any country, you modify, you tweak one thing and it impacts something else, and the next thing you know, you're like a DJ trying to figure out how to get the best tune out. But yes.
Absolutely. So, and yeah, if nothing else, we can agree that this will be interesting times for us. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, doing good, thanks, Lloyd. Yeah, thanks. No, just about the tax, I slightly I slightly understand it differently from Lawrence, in that my understanding that the tax reduction doesn't actually change the transaction fee at all. So it wouldn't be cheaper to do things on Cardano. It's just that little 10% reduction in the tax goes to staking rewards as opposed to going into the treasury. My assumption was it wouldn't change the transaction volume. I mean, transaction cost. Am I wrong?
I'd have to reread it again, but that was my interpretation of it. You could be right, by the way, John, because I did look at it and go,
Yeah, no, I I very rarely get to say this to you, Lawrence, but I think I'm right. So,
Really?
I'll just stick that flag in the earth and then be embarrassed about it later when it turns out I'm not. But I do believe it's just a redirection of part of the transaction fee. It doesn't change anything overall. I mean, I certainly came out early against the reduction because it would be absolutely meaningless for everybody except some SPOs who might see a meaningful difference. But for everybody else, it would be absolutely irrelevant. And all it would do would be to put pressure on us in future years to keep our budget within that replenishment rate. And if you cut the replenishment rate in half, there's your argument for cutting back on the budget. And I asked a few questions which I never got an answer to. Where did this come from? Who put it up? Who would stand to benefit from weakening the members-based organization's ability to put forward a reasonably strong budget for investment and growth. There's questions there that I haven't got answered. I heard a rumor that it was put forward by somebody in the foundation, but
This was
No,
Andrew
you can actually.
Westberg.
It was Andrew Westberg. Yeah, no, Andrew put it out. He did a nerd out. That's his channel that he uses to share Cardano stuff. It was Andrew. He did say in there that he has a team of people behind him that also did it. But it was Andrew Westberg that was the poster of the proposal. And he did. I mean, he made a good art. His argument is not that the 10% or 20% is the right answer. It's that we should agree on what our taxation rate is, and that his proposal is to simply have us agree on what our tax rate should be. So so here we are. We're going through it to find out.
Thanks for that, Lloyd, and thanks for that link there, Felix. I'll have a look at this after that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Hey, Nana, go ahead.
Hey, Lloyd. Hey, everyone. It's good to be here, once again. Hi, Felix. It's been a while. Nice seeing you again. All right, guys. So my question really has to do with clarity on the timelines of the various budget items that we are looking at. I think on the forum, a topic was raised regarding the timelines, where we were actually, kind of deliberating over what really the timelines are for the various budget buckets. Because, for instance, if you look through the summary, it looks like some budgets are going to last for, 6 months, some also going to last for a year, but it is not really clear as to which one really is lasting for a year, which one is really lasting for, 6 months. And a typical example is, if you look at, for instance, the core budget bucket, right? For instance, you realize that there's going to be a one treasury withdrawal action, and then the funds will be locked and then to be released by a smart contract upon schedule. And if you look at the schedules, it is going to be released from June through to September 2025. So I'm really wondering if there can be any clarity really on the budget items or the budget buckets as to what the timelines really are. Are we doing annual for all the buckets, or we are doing, say, biannual for all the buckets, or what really is the difference like over here, so that we can have that clarity in the ecosystem? Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you, Nana. I think, I've taken that feedback on board for our next versions of the document release. I think we do need to be very clear on if there's a line item that is longer than 6 or 7 months worth of work. Like if it's something that we would be promising into next year, there has to be some clarity there as far as what that is. We also need clarity on it's a full year ask, but it's getting paid in June kind of thing, where it'll, the first 6 months of work would be paid in June. Those kinds of clarity need to be in our sheet, and I think we can accomplish that. I don't think that's something that's going to be difficult to make clear as to that's just a line in the spreadsheet that says that this is how long this particular item is actually being funded for. And what's good about the sort of, if it goes into next year, we need to start having this conversation, because we have to mature this process to where we're getting 3 to 5 years of budget understanding for things that need 3 to 5 years of understanding, not just this. Again, first brush through, we wanted to simplify as much as we can, but in reality, we need planning money. We need to be able to think 3 years, 5 years down the road, and we need to be able to engage certain things, especially things like research, into multiple year capabilities. So to do that, we need to be very cognizant of DReps, we're agreeing to do this for 3 years, or we're agreeing to do this for 5 years, or whatever that is, so that the appropriate gravity is given to that decision, right? If it is just a 3-month engagement, it's a 3-month engagement. We'll see how it does, and we'll come out the other side. No big deal. If it's a 5-year thing, we're telling ourselves that we're going to try to do something for 5 years. What are the milestones? You see what I'm saying? What would make that 5-year plan palatable? And so we have to get to that phase, and that's what this this is the first step in that direction. Is that helpful, Nana?
Yeah, at least for now, we will look forward to the update and then get to understand, because I think it will help us understand really if the the budget that we are seeing in terms of the numbers and the figures are actually either over or under, right? So that we can make our judgment from that angle. So yeah, thanks for putting it as part of your priority checks.
For sure. In continuing our budget AMA process, if you have a question, if you've newly arrived and you have a question, concern, or comment, we're happy to take them. Just raise your hand. We will recognize you for to try and help bring some clarity. Hey, Nana, go ahead again.
Yeah, back again. So I was looking for some clarity on the net change limit. I mean the effect of it if passed, right? So I think in the proposal it states somewhere that if passed, this would be the net change limit for 2025, right? So I was wondering, I think we had a chat on the forum with some other ecosystem individuals, but the way I understood it was that if a net change limit is passed, like for instance 350 million ADA, right? What it means is that through, at least according to the proposal structure that I read, through January to December 2025, that is a net change limit that the ecosystem is going to go by in terms of treasury withdrawal actions and stuff. But then I'm also getting the understanding that for the net change limit, even though we have one that has passed and is in place, another one can also be submitted as well as a governance action and then be worked on and then passed. But I'm wondering, would it be constitutional? So like, for instance, we have this 350 million ADA. Would it be constitutional for somebody else to say, propose, let's say, 200 million ADA, and then, give it to the ecosystem to kind of go through, and then if passed, right, what kind of effect is it going to have on the budget that we are looking at now in terms of the Cardano ecosystem budget for 2025? Is it that all items are going to be halted and then we comply with the new net change limit, or we are going this particular budget is going to comply with the old net change limit that was passed initially?
That's a great question. Lawrence, did you want to work on that one? Did you want to go through some of that one?
Yeah, so it's something we've been discussing, and obviously, war rooming is probably the best way of explaining that one to the impact. So, if we set a net change limit of 350, great. So that sets it for the year. If the DReps then approve a budget, let's say, I'm making this up by the way as we go along. Let's say they agree to spend in that period 350 million. So it's all constitutional. So the net change limit is constitutional. The budgets that have been approved are constitutional, and they have met the total withdrawal for the year of 350. Great. And then within that period, someone then comes along and says, I now want to raise another net change limit to decrease the net change limit from 350 to 200. So when that goes through to the DReps would then need to review that to say, well, we've already committed to spend 350. So inevitably, you cannot then decrease the net change limit. So it would be unconstitutional to do that. So you would then need to basically reject the net change limit for that period because you've already committed. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
So the second thing we looked at, if we then looked at the second scenario, which was that we set the limit at 350, we then, spend 200, and then there's some gaps. So, and then somebody raises a net change limit. So you're only committed to, you've approved a budget of 200, you have a net change of 350. So there's a range of an additional of 150 million. So then someone raises a net change limit straight away to say, I want to limit to 200. So basically to cap it, so no more could be spent. So consequently, when the DReps would look at that to say, well, we have the capacity, we have our commitments covered, so they could, if they so choose to, then approve that net change limit, which would result in no further withdrawals for the year. So that one could go through. And likewise, we also looked at the variance of, well, let's say you've got, because the net change limit we're proposing is 350 every year until another net change limit is created. So let's say you've got 350 committed in 1 year, and then you've only got 200 the next year and 200. So there's a gap in the future years. And this is where it started to get really complicated for the DReps, because you could have somebody raising a net change limit for 3 years' time if they so chose to. to limit the amount spent in 3 years' time. Again, based on and this, by the way, is just Lloyd and me kind of going through the Constitution and checking and suggesting. So this was just purely us evaluating user cases. When we looked at that, we came to the conclusion that actually, yes, it is constitutional because there's no committed spend in that year 3, future year. So consequently, it could go through, and the DReps could choose, if they so choose, wishes to decrease year 3 because there are no commitments in that year. So yeah, so we have thought about it. It's an interesting debate, and I think one that's going to take a while for us to really digest, and through diagrams and discussions with the DReps to make them aware how to oversee and manage a multi-year budget. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Thanks. At least I'm clear on that for now. Yeah, so thanks very much.
Cool. Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks, Nana, for the question. That's a great one. Definitely one that is going to take some time to get through. Hey, Damien, how are you today?
Yes, I'm fine. I got a question up on the net change limit. So if we propose a net change limit for 350 million ADA, and our budget is like 300 million, I'm just throwing out numbers, then would that mean that the rest of the year everybody could, or it's until the end of the year, I guess, everybody could only put in proposals for like 50 million ADA?
Correct.
Yes, that's right. If that's caps our total spend for the year. So if the budget, using just round numbers, if Intersect's budget, that they present of all the committees ends at 300 million, it's not quite that high, but if it was, then that would leave 50 million remaining for other proposals to come out during the rest of the year. That's exactly what it would look like.
Exactly. So that's going to be an interesting one, because if but we have to see how it works out.
Exactly, and the reality is that we were always cognizant of that from the beginning. So that is something, there's always been the desire and drive to keep the budgets being provided through Intersect below, and leave at least, a nice buffer. We've always said try to get around 20% or so if we can, of that buffer left, so that there's room for other proposals from the ecosystem. But also, if there needs to be a change later in the year, like that's the other thing. Like, do you, in your own personal budgeting, do you spend all of your money in the year? Hopefully not. I mean, sometimes we don't have a choice, but if we have the choice, you want to put some of your money away, because you don't know if the refrigerator is going to break, or whatever might happen that's an unexpected expense during the year. So having some room in that net change limit for an unexpected expense is a really smart fiscal policy. It's just something that we should try to accomplish. So I would say, again, we kept these budgets as far beneath the net change limit as was feasible, leaving room for both innovation and emergencies.
Yeah, exactly. But isn't it for like Intersect, because we are like the let's say the biggest MBO for Cardano at this moment? Isn't it that we should look at, for example, if we put out a budget proposal, that we set the net change limit twice as much, so that not everybody can say, yeah, look at this, they almost took more than half of the net change limit and the rest of us can't do anything else. So maybe we need to have some kind of, because I know how the community is going to react.
Well, I mean, part of it has been, you also, the other side of it is that the Treasury is not an unlimited resource, right? So the cap is actually to keep it under the replenishment rate, which means that we're living within our means. So it's like we have a salary and we have savings. Our salary is where we capped the net change limit, right? So that we're not spending our savings, but we're spending only the new money coming in. And so that's the balance, right? That is exactly what we're trying to strike, is a balance here between those two big demands.
Yeah, it's like government.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it.
Thank you for the question, Damien. Appreciate it. I love getting to the roots of the problems that we're trying to solve here. That helped us definitely get to that root there. Couple of things in the in the chat. Felix did post the video for that governance action. He also posted some information from Rich from EarnCoin Pool as well. So those are some good resources you guys might want to check out on the tax item. And then Jonathan added a post from I guess that's Fluid Token, Fluid 7. I think that's Fluid Token. Jonathan, if you know, if you want to, what is that post for?
Rich from EarnCoin Pool did the original work for that parameter committee proposal, and that's just a link to his forum post on the Cardano forum where it was discussed originally, and he hasn't been mentioned so far in any of the discussions or any of the reports on the actual budget. The governance action went through, so giving him support would be much appreciated. And there's a tweet just giving you that opportunity to like him, appreciate him. He works hard. He's put in a couple of parameter proposals that haven't seen much light of day yet. So yeah, just want to flag him.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that. Yeah, definitely the hard work that's going on in the community. It's coming from so many places, and it's really good to see that, you know, we try to recognize those members that have put that hard work in. So thank you for pointing that out for us. I appreciate it. All right, Martin, what's up?
I just want to say that I second that. I know Richard, I speak with him. Yeah, he works very hard. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys, we're moving into our last 10 minutes, so we can move into final thoughts. We have some committee members here still of the various committees. So if any of our committee members has some final thoughts you'd like to share with the community, any call to action that needs to be laid out, definitely now's the time. And we'll draw this AMA session to a close after that. All right. Well, seeing none, I will say the biggest call to action, obviously, in this whole process is that we need your feedback in the Cardano forum. The budget proposals are there. The next revision of the budget proposals depends on the feedback that we receive in the forums this week. So please, if you have the opportunity this week, go give those budgets a good review, give us your best feedback, and we will take that all back so that we can begin processing the next revision of the budgets and get us a little closer to the info actions that we have to post to go for approval. But we want those info actions to be fully informed by the work that you guys do. So please give them a little bit of time and let us know if there's anything we can do to improve it for you. Nana, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to ask, have you guys been able to make any progress with the in-person sessions that we're going to hold to kind of socialize the budget?
Sorry, one more time.
In-person sessions.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, has any progress been made about that yet?
So yeah, so far, no, that we had to stop the progress on those. There wasn't any funding. That was number one. So without any funding, we can't progress on something like that. If we are able to find a source of funds, then we will begin that process again. 100%. I will stake this flag in the ground. It is very important that the community gather and have conversations together. I've heard people say that it's a waste of funds. I do not believe it is a waste of funds. It is important that once we have coalesced these documents to a point where we need to reach final approval, it is important that we gather, spend the time, and we can gather in multiple locations and we can gather feedback. We learned lessons from the constitutional conventions, so we can do something along those lines. And that is what the proposal is to do something where we get gatherings together and find ways to get actionable feedback to bring everything together and move that forward. But yes, I believe in-person gatherings are critical to the success of this blockchain over time, because we are a collaboration engine, and in order to do that, we reach our consensus in our rooms, and when we bring that information, collate it, collaborate online, on-chain, and then we get approval on-chain, which is exactly what we did with the Constitution. And I believe we can do it again with the roadmap, with the budget, with so many other things. In Cardano, we will get our collaboration muscles built up. So anyways, I'm going to stake that flag in the sand right there and say I'm willing to work for that, because that's what I believe is a good way to work as a community. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with all you said there, Lloyd. I just raised my hand just to say that there was a discussion about, getting DReps together and other things for other things. And, as you know, I was lucky enough to go to Argentina as an alternate delegate from London, which was, an absolute honor and a privilege. And it was, kind of unexpected. I, networked with people there, but it was still an absolute gift. And it's part of the reason that I've spent now hundreds of hours engaging in the ecosystem, almost just, to pay that back. And I've been enriched by the experience more than I ever imagined. So I would say that whenever those in-person events are being organized, I would strongly advocate for a portion of those tickets or access to be made available through some sort of lottery system, so that people who might never expect to be able to actually be invited or included in that would it could be done in numerous skillful ways. I haven't given it much thought of how it would do it, but yeah, I'd advocate for something like that being integrated in the future.
Thank you, John. And yes, so that yes, that was part of the original design, is a lottery system of some sort to fund for some people to come, that anyone could apply for, so that we can share this experience with more people, so more people get to see what it means to gather and collaborate in these ways. We've
Yeah,
got
that would be
5 minutes
excellent.
left, Felix, but go ahead.
Actually, quick acknowledgement to everybody as well. Like the two things what I would love to find out is we always see the challenges, we always see the issues, and sometimes we forget what we actually accomplish along the way. First one is that we have a massive engagement on governance. Not always was like this, and it's quite awesome to see that we have all communities around the globe stepping up, engaging, building the expertise. This is awesome. We see that it's a very sensible topic to many, what shows us and indicates that it actually matters to people. So this is awesome. For sure, sometimes there's a conflict and there's strong opinions. But I think this definitely something. Thanks a lot for everybody actually taking the time and getting into governance, because it matters to all. And the second one as well on the mentality, like in Cardano, I think we all like reasonable long-term perspectives. I mean, we in 2025 executing on a roadmap presented the first time in 2017. Guys, this is nuts. Many nation states are not able to do stuff like this, right? And to see that even here in the annual budget, right, that we can see there's a lot of draw on how should it be exactly and more like this or like that. But generally, we can see everybody's quite agreed that there should be an annual budget, that we want to secure, that we want to keep this culture as well as, hey, think long, right? In this regard, for long-term visions and perspectives, and as well methodologies which bring you that. So pretty impressed and personally really proud about the Cardano community, and which gives me a lot of confidence that, hey guys, we will handle this stuff. Will not be easy, will be challenged, oh my god, and all the time on popcorn, be ready for sure. But looking on the people being in place, guys.
Thank you so much, Felix. And on that note, I think we'll call that's a perfect place to end this session. So thank you very much for all of your time and attention today. Greatly appreciate it. Your attention is your most precious resource. And when you share it with us, we appreciate it because it is moving Cardano forward. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day or the end of your evening, and we'll see you guys next time. Thursday is our next session. It's a Thursday afternoon, US East Coast time. So evening time for Europe, and earlier in the day for our friends on the West Coast and further and out into Asia. So take care, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thank you.